I'm sure most of you know the disturbing Gypsy Rose Blanchard case or have seen the act on Hulu, which was inspired by the case. This may be controversial, but Gypsy Rose's contribution to the killing of her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, can be justified, and she deserves parole in 2023. If you haven't heard about the case, let me tell you a little bit about it. Gypsy Rose's mother had told people that her daughter suffered from leukemia, asthma, muscular dystrophy, and many other medical conditions. She also had people under the impression that she had the mental capacity of a 7-year-old, as well as told people that she was younger than she actually was. She was actually 16 when her mother convinced everyone and herself that she was 12 years old. Gypsy's doctors had never found any raw evidence of the illness claimed by her mother, so that was the first suspicious thing that came up. And her mother tried to keep her out of contact with the outside world by destroying her phone and computer and homeschooling her. In 2015, Gypsy Rose and her boyfriend conspired to kill Dee Dee Blanchard. Gypsy Rose was sentenced to 10 years in prison back in 2015 with the possibility of parole in 2023. Now that you know the story, I'm going to tell you why Gypsy is justified. Gypsy Rose is a victim of severe abuse from her mother, and she had no other option in order to be free. Her mother was essentially slowly killing her with her abuse. She endured over 2 decades of horrific physical abuse at the hands of Dee Dee Blanchard. She was drugged all the time. Her mother kept her highly medicated. Most of those medications caused hallucinations, which can make people really high and also cause severe mental problems. So she was definitely not in the right state during the murder. And also, the drugs that Gypsy was being forced to take were extremely hazardous. She could have died from those drugs. If the mother did not die, Gypsy's chances of death would be at an all-time high, and possibly around 85% by the end of 2015. The medications Gypsy Rose was given caused all her teeth to rot and fall out, and that was another side effect from her abuse. And she was also punished for trying to contact the outside world or do little simple things like drink soda. She would be severely punished for. Gypsy tried running away one day, and her mother tied her to the bed. She starved her, broke her stuff, physically and mentally abused her, and drugged her. So you can definitely see how severe the abuse that Gypsy Rose was getting was. Another argument in defense of Gypsy Rose Blanchard is that she did not actually kill her mother. Her boyfriend convicted the actual murder. That night, Gypsy had let her boyfriend into the house knowing what he was going to do, but did not physically commit the act herself. So another reason that I want to defend Gypsy was sheltered, and therefore she was not mentally stable. Gypsy was not allowed to do anything because her mother kept her sheltered, which weighs on her mental health and therefore the state that she was in when she killed her mother. She was also homeschooled, so she lacks a lot of knowledge and common sense that us people who were in school have because she was so sheltered. And her mother essentially tried to keep her stupid in order to keep up this whole big lie. Under the influence of these drugs her mother forced her to take, a person will not have total control over their own actions. She was also so severely traumatized by the abuse that was happening to her that she is suffering some kind of PTSD, and that weighs heavy on her mental health and therefore her decision to kill her mother. The next argument is that the systems had failed her. Nobody would help her. She felt trapped. She didn't want her mother to die. She just wanted the life that she was living to die. The doctors had suspicions when they didn't find any medical records stating that Gypsy Rose was actually sick. They never reported this to authorities and never did anything about this, so they should have gotten involved. Gypsy Rose's father also should have gotten involved. He had always said that he was in the dark. Dee Dee would leave him in the dark about anything about Gypsy, but he definitely should have investigated this further, and Dee Dee would also tell him a lot of suspicious things that he would dismiss and completely write off. My final argument is that Gypsy Rose deserves a chance at normal life. She is not at all a danger to society. She actually says that she feels more free in prison than she ever has while she was living with her mother. So she's actually really happy now. She's 27 years old, and it's been 6 years since the murder while she was a young woman, and she's obviously grown. In prison, she's thriving and she's getting involved in photography. A screenwriter working with the family stated, I definitely think that going into the prison system was something that was positive for her. In fact, it gave her structure, discipline, and a good social setting where she can learn things, get an education, and learn different things while working on herself. The screenwriter also says that she does a lot of photography for the inmates when they want to take pictures and things like that. And she's very involved and has a job in the prison system. And she's also gotten into skincare and makeup and things like that. So she's really thriving and really happy and not posing a threat to society at all. She's also been part of a program where she takes care of dogs, and she is also preparing for her GED. So she's getting an education as well. And she got engaged to a man who was her prison pen pal. So some people would say that she should have called authorities before choosing to kill. And as stated previously, Gypsy Rose lacked a lot of knowledge and right versus wrong since she was so mentally damaged and traumatized. So that's kind of why she didn't really know to call the authorities. Another thing people would say about to counter my argument is that murder is never okay, which is completely true. In this circumstance, this girl had no other options in order to be free. She was essentially being killed by her mother slowly, and she was going to die herself. As mentioned before, she was also very mentally unstable due to the drugs, due to her lack of education, and she was essentially uneducated as well. So, in conclusion, Gypsy's contribution to the killing of her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, can be justified due to the nature of this situation. Dee Dee Blanchard can be considered the real criminal in this situation. Now that you know a little bit about this case yourself, you can determine whether you think Gypsy Rose really deserves her 10-year prison sentence.